Have you ever looked at your electricity bill and wondered what's driving electricity prices? Like, is it Australia's old coal-fired power stations? Is it the international price of gas increasing? Or is it our shift to renewable energy? Well, luckily for you, I spoke to an energy expert from the Grattan Institute about what's impacting Australia's energy prices.
There was a time, say 20 years ago, when gas was very cheap and things like solar and wind was very expensive. That's been changing over the last 20 years. And so the idea that you could just use gas when you didn't have enough coal had become more difficult. You can have a gas turbine or a coal turbine and produce electricity. The electricity doesn't care where it comes, where the turbine, how it's run. Basically a fuel which is effectively burned and spins a big turbine to produce electricity. What made it a lot worse was that and Australia has plenty of gas. We export a lot more gas than we use domestically. Now, when the war in Ukraine broke out a couple of years ago, the European countries who were dependent upon Russian gas suddenly had a big problem. Now, you might say that's a long way away, but what that meant was suddenly they needed to start buying up a whole lot of gas. That meant that we started to see the impact of that on our own domestic prices for gas. Gas is not used all that much in Australia for producing electricity. It's a good fuel for meeting those times when we don't have enough wind or solar, when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining. We might use gas as the backup. And we might not use it all that often, but because gas now is significantly more expensive than renewable energy, when we do use it, it puts up the price. In the last several years, there have been some increases in electricity prices across the eastern seaboard. I mean, from Queensland through to South Australia and Tasmania. A lot of that was driven by weather patterns and aging coal-fired power stations and gas, the cost of gas when we use it. And what goes on internationally does affect the price of electricity, not dramatically, but when it does, it can have quite a significant impact. And in 2022 and 2023, that's one of the contributors to what was then a pretty substantial increase in electricity prices. But it wasn't renewables so much. It was actually two things. It was very expensive gas and also the fact that most of our coal-fired power stations are getting old. Most of us, as we get older, cost more to maintain our bodies. We break down more, and that's what happens with coal-fired power stations. And so they become less reliable, and when they're not there, then we need gas as well. So the combination of those things has been tending to pushing up prices. And of course, the cost of that transmission I mentioned before, we don't pay for the sun. We have to build the solar farm, but the ongoing cost of the sun itself is free. The low cost of producing that extra electricity tends to be offset to some extent by what we have to do to make sure that it's reliable and we have things that are available, like gas, for example, when we don't have enough sun and wind.